Here I am to talk on a topic which most of you actually know. So, in that sense, is there anything new that I'm going to place on the table? All I can say is there are questions that you may have at the back of your mind, some of which I'll be able to answer, but together, let's look for solutions and answers. So, as you go along in this presentation, if at any point you find that you don't agree with me, which is perfectly fine, or you find that there are some elements that are missing, or there are areas that you would like to learn, know, to the extent that I know, and my teammates who are here, Ava, if you don't mind standing for a second, that's Ava for you, that's Zainab, and the one who has really put in this presentation together, that's Nimna. Now, the very reason why it's important is, which is rule number one in advertising, media, marketing, communications, is that it is a complete team effort. No single individual can make marketing, branding work together in total, which is why we really give importance to team. Now, my favorite football team, some of you may disagree with me, is Arsenal. And that's one brilliant team without too many stars. They've created magic. Now, I'm not talking about the current magic, I'm talking about Arsenal's brilliant performance when Arsene Wenger used to be their manager, one of the best in the world. So, that as the preface to this presentation, let's get it going. Lovely title. Thank you. Yeah. Tips, tricks, and everything that sticks. Because ultimately, the residue that is required in every piece of communication is what is the residue? What is the message that is finally left in the minds of you and I? The simplest way that any SME, or for that matter, any professional marketing person can look at it is, if you were a human being, which all of us are, how would I or you be different from someone else? In terms of physicality, none sitting here are pretty much the same. The way we talk, the way we carry ourselves, our tonality, personality, it's so different, which is precisely why brands need to be different, and that is the ethos and values that is carried forward. Now, when we get started, we always say one should hit the ground, learn the basics, and get going. So we start off with basics. We may say it's theory is boring, but there's no running away from some basic fundamentals. Right. In a nutshell, long and short of this presentation is very well encapsulated with this one slide, which is often called as the brand pyramid. Now, this brand pyramid, incidentally, was developed by an agency called BBDO. BBDO is one of the largest, very creatively strong advertising agency. I have a problem with this word creative, which I'll come to in a second. I, for one, believe that the word creativity and creatives are so overused, misused in advertising, in communication. There's only one creator, and that's the good Lord. Everything that we see in advertising is nothing but a reflection, a mirror being kept in front of you. And if that resonates with the product or service, that's all we do in advertising and communication. It's just insights. So just in case somebody walks up to you saying, I am creative, it's questionable. There's only one creator, for God's sake. That's it. The rest, what we do, are simple insights that are taken based on which we develop communication forward. For example, the gentleman sitting in the second row, he has a particular attire, he has a specific look on his face, a half smile look on his face, which is actually the personality reflection of him, and the way he carries himself could be friendly, someone who is amiable, There are some others who may have a very serious look on their face. Now, that's the kind of personality. So, we actually touch those smaller elements and develop communication. That's all we do. We don't do this big thing called creativity. That man is creative. Where is the latest trend? And I have one more point on this latest, not latest, 1980s idea, 2023 idea. It's again a whole lot of nonsense. What is modern? What is new in communication? Something that started this morning is modern. It's completely wrong. If you look at a vehicle like Dodge, it's extremely strong across the world. Dodge can very well be called as a brand that is retro, as in it's old school, but it's still strong. How do you explain a brand like the Jeep? For the last many years, it's an iconic brand. It's what is often called as a cult brand because it has such a strong fan following. Now, the whole point is it old? Is it new? Who created this concept of what is old, what is new? Because we keep meeting clients who say that, no, these ideas are really old. Where is the definition for old and new? If you put AI, VR, AR, they're all new. Now, as a matter of fact, as we go along in this presentation, we'll find the other element is a lot of people tend to say that I know digital, I know social. Having learned a little bit about digital social, all I can say is it is a vast ocean which no human being, even if you were to live for 70 years, is going to learn digital or social completely at all. All that we know is probably 1 or 2% of digital social because it's ever expanding. There is something new that happens every day. So, not to digress, in every brand, when you develop, the first thing that is required is a vision. Very simple terms. I'm standing here till the end of the room or the hall. That's technically my vision. That is where I want to accomplish in life. Now, what happens is a lot of corporate firms, when you walk into the offices, you find one nice poster that's put on the wall, vision. It would have gathered dust, right? Because nobody reads it. Second, it's written in a format that it's at least 6 or 7 lines, half of which doesn't mean anything. So, as an SME, when you start your enterprise, and if you say, my job, I've got, let's say, a small chocolate firm producing company. I want to be a name to be reckoned or counted in Muscat. Perfect. You don't even have to say in Oman. You don't have to write these big words like, oh, I want to be a huge brand in the GCC when you know very well that you cannot be. There are people who even go to the extent of saying, I want to be the biggest chocolate brand in the world. It is not going to happen, right? So why write that 6 lines of English so that when 10 people walk into the company, even if they read, they'll say, oh, that's the vision of the man, but we all know that vision is not going to happen. So put a vision that is practical. Now, here comes the next question. You can also have a vision which is really long term, and there is a classic example which is Mr. Steve Jobs, because it is all about changing the world using better technology. It is not innovation. Changing the world using better technology. Or historically, if you look at 1929, which is when the world had the Great Depression, pretty much what we are going through across the world. That's when the most lovable character in the world was actually born. Can anyone tell me who that character was? It's a question that keeps coming in all the quiz contests. I'll answer that for. It's actually Mickey Mouse. Walt Disney, in 1929, when the world was going through Great Depression and everyone was really down, he created Mickey Mouse, and he wanted to make sure that people visited the cinema halls so that there was that smile of happiness. And that's how the whole drama of Mickey Mouse developed. And every brand needs something called an attribute. Attribute is, let's say I'm trying to sell a product and it contains A, B, C, D ingredients. Those ingredients should be of certain specific quality not only of quality, people should be able to identify and they should be able to say that I believe in what you are saying. Otherwise, this word quote unquote quality is a very, very misleading one. Everybody, if you ask why are you priced your water brand compared to someone else as a bit higher, quality. Now, can you quantify quality? No. The word quality is a very funny one. There are some 10 or 12 words from English dictionary which are used by most companies to describe their product or their attribute. Please do not use it because they are just English words. Be honest as to what my product will stand for and then put it across. The man behind VW, Volkswagen Automotive, it'll be very surprising as to who started that brand. For all the bad things that man did in the world, it was Adolf Hitler who started the production, who wanted a brand which is VW or Volkswagen to be made. So there's one good thing that man did when we say there are lots of not so great stuff that he did. Now, throughout in Europe, it's very, very clear that VW is a very ordinary, normal, ordinary person's car. Middle East, it's a little different. It's got one step higher in terms of. But throughout their attribute, the brand attribute is one of a common man's car, which is Das Auto, as the way they call it. And from there comes rational and emotional benefits. Every product needs a rational benefit. It's an emotional benefit also. Rational is your left brain, emotional is your right brain. Every product, when we actually walk into a store, let's say to buy a new dishwasher, common sense sometimes or rational brain says, why do I need one more? I can certainly use the same one which I have got. The emotional one says, no, why not another color? Or you walk into a shoe store, suddenly you find a discount sale, you have no reason to buy, still you are telling your mind, it doesn't matter. If I have a blue trouser, the brown shoe may go with that because I've seen some smart men wearing that. So using rational and emotional benefits, you're trying to really push it. As a matter of fact, between rational and emotional, what drives human beings is emotional. It's not rational. We are all just products of sentiment. We may say, no, sentiments don't work and all that. The fact is, it's sentiment that works. If some of you have come this morning for this particular COMEX, it's with the expectation that there is something different compared to the previous year. It's an emotional one. You're not going to go back and do one cross comparison of last year, this year. Nobody does that. Brand value. Extremely important to develop values which are different, and values are often connected to culture. Now, you go to certain specific families, we say this family has got this particular culture. Now, that is not something that is written at the door of the home. That you see when you interact with the people who are residing there. So, culture, values, what they stand for. And it's important that, for example, there are brands which say that, come what may, I will give you replacement if the product is bad. But there are many instances when you actually go back to the same store and they'll find reasons as to why it need not be or cannot be taken back. And the last resort is you go to consumer protection and you may win or win. And lastly, brand essence. This is what drives a brand. This is what makes you and I buy a particular product, service. Disney, the example that I said, what they are selling, the brand essence is magic. Disney is about magic. Maraland is also about small magic. Weekends, why do mothers, fathers, they take their kids to Maraland? Because it is a break from reality. Cinema across the world, it's about magic. So, different reasons, everything. Like, for example, Friday, there are people who go for prayer only on Fridays for Jummah because For all the sins that you may have done throughout, at the end of it, somewhere at the back of your mind, you have this, okay, let me do one good thing. Because in the Holy Quran, it's mentioned that you cannot replace Friday prayer. The rest you can do, Jammu Kasram, all that. So much so that you try to kind of cover it up by, and that's a kind of dissonance, what dissonance that you have, you kind of break it. So in sum and substance, if not any of this, the important aspect is treat or see a brand as a person. If I am a person, what's my physical personality, which leads on to brand essence. And as long as brand essence is of some goodness to everyone, people will take you. And when brand essence is not good, obviously there are no takers for it. Now, I've culled out 3 examples of brands that have done reasonably well from Oman so that we have a better local connect. These brands have actually, with their brand essence, gone on to win international recognition. Okay? The one on the right extreme, that's the Omani flag. That's at Oman Avenues Mall a couple of years back. Now, the whole thing was Oman Avenues Mall started in 2012-13. Just like every mall, after a point, the number of people walking in, it started to go down. So, some activity was required to ensure the brand is revitalized. It's got a second lease of life, and there are more people who would come. So, the agency suggested, along with the client, that why don't we create the world's largest flag made of Lego? So, we went on to create that. And what did it ensure? The number of people who actually came to see this world's largest flag went up. So, which means your footfall increased, which is a learning for you when you do business. And then the Guinness Book of World Records team, they came, they measured, and they gave a citation, which is the Guinness Book of World Records citation on the left. Now, how it helped the brand is important. The footfall increased, people came, they stood against the flag, clicked photographs, put it on social space, PR happened. Suddenly, there was a buzz and activity as far as the brand is concerned. Second one, Ali and Abdul Karim, which is Delicioso hot sauce. At one point, and even today, you go to any coffee shop in Muscat or Oman or even the GCC, you find this Delicioso hot sauce, which is actually very spicy. It's one of the most economical compared to the biggies of the world. The only 2 lines copy, which you may find it a little difficult to read, is even hotter. Even hotter than green chili and red chili. That's it. What we are trying to say is that this particular brand, Delicioso hot sauce, is more spicy or spicier than green chili and red chili. Very simple, direct communication. It went on to win an award. And the last one is for Renna Mobile, again an Omani brand. Now, Renna Mobile, the target audience are clearly blue collar workers from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, etc. What they really miss is their families back home. So, what was also developed using clear line drawings are various activities that happen in India, which a husband would call his or his wife and then speak over the phone for many hours. Renna, you can, with the card, you can talk for the longest period for the smallest amount. That was the central idea. And you talk about right from mangoes to Kathakali to music to Tekadi to elephants to you name it. That's what a typical person would speak. Now, that's what people do in media and marketing and all. You captivate hearts, minds, market share. That's what we do by theory. But how you go about doing it is the most important element. It's storytelling. You're actually telling a story to the audience, your target audience, and if they buy, if they believe in your story, your product is a success. If they do not believe in your story with empty words like quality, transparency, all these big words, which doesn't mean anything. On the other hand, if you say simpler stuff, it's easier. A little bit of logical thinking which is required. Whenever we say advertising, the first opinion or the first thing that comes in the minds of many people is graphic design. Advertising is graphic design. Completely wrong. Advertising's 5% or communications 5% is graphic design. Advertising is not graphic design. Advertising is clearly understanding the minds of people, what is of interest, and once you understand the need, which it could be a very pronounced need or it could be a latent need. Many occasions I have stood in hypermarkets and I find men and women both buying fairness creams. Now, because in our society, not just Oman, across the world, there is an unwritten code that fair is beautiful. So while we may say, no, that's not the case, the reality is if you go to hypermarkets, you find people buying fairness creams. So there is a very pronounced need for a particular product, which is what most of these creams actually amplified by saying, fair is beautiful, so come and buy me. Fair means confidence, so come and buy me. That's the hard reality, which is exactly what we mean by the first word, which is strategy. I just picked up one example to really demonstrate as to what it is. If you have a product which has better price, in terms of lower price, for example, there's nothing wrong selling a lower price product. Sometimes people say, how can you sell lower price? Somebody else will come with a lower price. Come on, we're living in 2023. It's a post-COVID era. People do not have money across the world. And look at the successful brands. All of them are value for money, value for many. We clearly find brands which have a premium, finding it very, very difficult to survive. That's the hard reality. Now, that being the case, if a product is clearly based on the proposition of giving value, and when I say value, it's not the value for money being written on a sheet of paper. I should clearly feel that there is value. If I walk into a store and if someone's ready to give me a shirt for 5 riyals as against 15 in the pre-COVID era, I'll pick the 5. People may not accept it, but that's the hard fact. From there comes, from strategy, you develop design, and design which goes on to integrated campaigns, and then you do performance marketing. I'll come to that in a second. When we say design, it includes content, which is layout, artwork, which is the visual part. You also have the copy part, and that's how you develop communication, be it outdoor hoarding, social media post, digital campaign, any radio, TV, or even a leaflet. And that's what is called an integrated campaign. You kind of bring everything together so that it all speaks one language. And then you do performance marketing, because at the end of it, you are able to evaluate the quality of it. Now, what happens in social media, if you look at the social media space of most of the brands, post number 1 and post number 6 have absolutely no connection. Because early morning I get up, I feel like putting a blue post. The next morning I feel like putting a green post. The fourth day I feel like putting a yellow post. This is exactly what happens in social space, because advertising is there, especially in social media, is reduced to the level of just design, which is where the problem is. If you look at it as a single human being who has the same tone, the way he or she would speak, then all your posts in the social space should have more or less the same look, feel, and attitude. It's exactly like the gentleman who is sitting here. He has a certain form. He has a certain way that he looks at, which a lot of people have. Some people always look straight. Some of them have a slight 30-degree angle. I have it, you also have it. Good to know. Now, what happens is, that's your personality. That should reflect in every post that you do. It can't be like to 10 different directions in 10 different days, which is exactly what is happening in most of the social media posts. And this mindless running after technology, I know this is COMEX, but I have to say it. Technology is only a tool to tell a story. Story is the more important part. If you do not have solid narrative, if you do not find the right hook, there is absolutely no point whether you do a VR or an AR or an IoT. These are just words, because that's only technique. It's exactly like you go to watch a film. If the film doesn't have excellent screenplay, story, the way it's done, then what's the point? Whether the camera is kept down or it goes up or it's a shot like that, how does it matter? We've all seen many films with absolutely no storyline but full of gimmicks. So, social media with gimmicks is not going to help a brand. It needs to clearly tap in a particular requirement and don't go after what is called as trend. Recently, there was an interview done, and a very good player was asked the difference between Messi and Ronaldo. And that man said, Ronaldo is a trend product, Messi is iconic. I'll clearly agree with it. Messi is iconic. The other one is a very hardworking man at the age of 40, pulling off, coming back, playing over and over. But the question is, do you want to be a trend product or you want to be a product that will stand the test of time? It has to be test of time. The other mistake that a lot of people tend to do is, the other company is doing it, so I will do a post which is the same or different. For God's sake, it is only in your mind, this competition. Is the consumer really bothered about whether you are competing with that brand? If he's got 2D, I'll have 3D. Who's interested? The fact is, be the best form of oneself. Have the confidence to say that this is the route that I will take, this is what I will stand for, and I really don't care whether X or Y has something else. Yes, I will learn something from them, but doesn't mean I'm going to copy just because it's some technological mumbo jumbo. Further, which leads me to the most important aspect in communication: insights. Insights drive communication. It's not creative. Whoever says advertising is a creative business is 100% wrong. Media, advertising, it's something that is slapped on our heads saying, oh, you are from advertising, so you're creative. No. Insights are, I'll give you a simple example. This is an Indian example. A toothpaste was launched in India. So instead of doing the usual, I will protect your teeth, I'll make it all white, etc., all that they tried to do is, India is one country full of festivals. 365 days, right from Kerala to Jammu Kashmir, full of festivals. And there is only one thing that is common to all the festivals, and that is sweets. Sweets cause tooth decay. And here is brand X, it's Pepsodent actually, their solution. Isn't it brilliant? Because it's contextual, it is so much ingrained in that country, rather than saying a very clinical, oh, here it contains ZPTO, it will clean your. Who remembers all this? Likewise, if in the context of Oman, if we were to pick up insights, nuances which are clearly about people, what makes them move, isn't it much more powerful? The fact is, there are a lot of young women, Omani women, who are working these days. Now, when you do commercials, let's say films or information dissemination, if it clearly shows women in positive light, that has a lot of value. Not to say that men aren't. Now, the second element is to define the clear problem. When you say define the clear problem from an SME perspective, what happens is, most of the time, actually, a friend of mine called yesterday and she's into advertising, some 25 years in advertising. She said, I'm starting a consultancy. I said, what consultancy? Clients do not know how to brief their communication media agency. So I will be the in-between. I will take information from the client and I will go and brief the advertising agency. And I find a huge market for it. And there is such a crying need for it. Now, for a minute, I thought, first of all, there's no crying need. Because what will happen is the client will think that why should I pay one more person who's in between? Second is the client is eminently capable of telling the agency what the requirement is. Agency is eminently capable of understanding the client. Why do you need one more agent? Anyway, she feels there is a crying need. Her definition itself of the need is completely wrong. For example, a couple of months back, the Ministry of Tourism here and the number of holidays, Eid holidays were very less. They went on to promote inbound tourism, as in within Oman. They said, go to Salalah, go to Sohar. Essentially, please don't go to Bangkok and Turkey and so on and so forth because you don't have too many days off. It was smart because they clearly defined that A, the number of holidays are less. B, not all are going to have tons of money. So isn't it better that you kind of use it within the country? So that's how you define. Third is you develop communication. When you develop communication, it's not necessary that it has to be like techno, giz with Intel inside kind of. There's nothing wrong. If it demands, if it is required. As I mentioned, it's not the camera angle that's important, it's the content that's important. Content is really king. And finally, how you deliver. You can deliver using digital, social, analog. Analog or traditional would mean newspapers, magazines, so on and so forth. Now here the point is a lot of people are critical. Nobody reads newspapers. That's the next one. Nobody reads magazines, nobody reads newspapers, nobody reads all that. We are all living in a pictorial world. That's why Instagram, everyone likes this, Instagram. Now, true to some extent, nobody has the time because earlier there was this study done that the best speaker could actually catch the attention or keep the attention for 18 minutes, 1-8. And when I say best speaker, it's like the Barack Obama kind. So I would think you all would have got bored by now because I guess I've crossed the 18th minute. It's very difficult in today's day and age to keep the interest going. Which is why when you do communication, ideally, in today's day and age, it's better to be visual led. But at the same time, the visual should be simple enough to convey what you want to convey. And for example, there are companies that have the habit of sending emails. By the time you open the email, you would have moved on to the 10th mail. What is the point? So things which are, when you have an easier way, don't take the complicated way. It's not necessary. The other day I went to one of the best known hospitals in Oman. It's an old hospital, but they've made it really large and smart and all that. I went to the emergency department. They made me go round and round at 10 o'clock. By the time I entered the emergency department, it was 12 because they had all the complications. First you go, you have to fill, they won't fill, you have to fill on the iPad. And after that, they'll give you some number. With that number, you have to go inside. Now, isn't technology supposed to be making our lives easier? It took some time for us to get this. I'm sure all of you would have gone through. Now, the point in life is, it's to make lives easier, not to show off. When we deal with sometimes clients here, sometimes I feel that it's a contest between corporate communication heads. I did this. So the other corpcom head or the marketing head would say, I did something better. So for a minute, if we leave out this competition and start looking at the consumer, who's actually our real star, and finally measure. That's one good thing. Earlier, you would release an ad in a newspaper. There's no way you could measure it. When a client says, has everyone seen the newspaper? We'll say, yeah, we spoke to some 30 people. Out of 30, 20 have seen it. It's a lie. Because the only way is this, in textbooks, there's something called the day after recall. You pick up the phone and you speak, did you see my ad? That bug will say, no, I have not seen the ad. Okay, page 2, you look down, our ad is, okay, I've seen the ad. But in today's day and age, the good thing is, performance or measurement can be clearly done. Which day of the week, who has seen it, to what extent or how much time have you spent? That's something in terms of where my money has gone can be clearly understood. Yep. I'll go a little faster on this. Before you start any product, do this simple thing called research. It's a big word. Let's make it a little more simple. Just because I like a profession or I like a particular product to be launched, don't launch it. See if the market is interested or ready for it. My interest has no value. That is the first thing that needs to be. A lot of people actually get into a business thinking, oh, I like music, so let me get into music industry. Now, are there enough takers for it? Is a question. Second is insights. How many ever times we repeated insights drive advertising? Clearly drive advertising. Strategic segmentation, you segment and slice an audience so that you clearly know whom you are talking to, the kind of target audience that you want to address. That could be based on age, it could be based on interest, and you develop the communication. That's where creatives come in. That is the only place. Till then you've done all your thinking and then you do creatives. Creatives is just the last part. And then you do roadmap, milestones and execution. Roadmap is your plan. Okay, this is what I want to achieve. And finally you measure, which is your ROI and KPIs. There's another element that I want to touch upon, which is, it's called the brand reality map. A couple of years back, the only place where you could actually get good abayas, and I'm talking about some 15 years back, excellent abayas, which are stitched so well in Muscat, or rather Oman, was between Oman and Fujairah border. There were some fantastic tailors at that time. Now, you put a brand in the context of it and see, where do I see, if I am getting into that kind of a business, where is the very best that is available? Is there a market for it? And then take it to the next level. If I'm getting into chocolate, what is that? And from there comes brand and consumer insights. All brands have some strengths, some weaknesses. As media agency, whenever we go to clients and say, what is so great about your brand? They'll say there's nothing. It's the same as every other brand. There's nothing great to talk. The right person who actually says what is special about a brand is usually the R&D, the research and development person, because he knows. I'll put it in a very simple format. If you have a particular dish that is made and it's kept on the dining table, the only person who can really say how different that dish is from something else is your wife, the lady at home. Absolutely. From that perspective, the only person who can clearly say this is how it is different is your wife or the lady or grandmother or mother. By the same logic, that is what is your biggest strength, and that is what that needs to be conveyed in your communication, which is your point of difference. Otherwise, it's just English. Like, for example, a couple of years back, the Ministry of Tourism, Oman Tourism, had a brilliant proposition. Brilliant. It was Arabia's best kept secret, Oman. It's true. Of all the GCC countries, Oman is clearly the treasure. It's so different. At the same time, not everyone is aware of it. If you were to travel to China in the mid-2000 and you say, I am from Oman, they'll say, near Dubai. That's how it was many years back. Now, that's something which Ministry of Tourism then changed to beauty as an address, Oman. I have a problem on that. Beauty as an address can be used for Switzerland also, isn't it? Whereas if you say Arabia's best kept secret, that's truly Oman. Egypt tourism, they say brilliant. They say it all started here because civilization, the Nile civilization, everything started with Egypt. And differentiation and marketing research, and that really leads to brand DNA. It's a big word, which is diribonucleic acid. Essentially, how am I different from someone else? Simple English. Next. In a market research, what all do you need to look at? You need to have your objective set. What is that I'm trying to find? Second is the target. Who is my target? Research methods that you will do. You can do qualitative research, you can do quantitative research. In a quantitative research, it's obviously the number of people that you meet. In a quality research, it's the qualitative questions that you go about. and you can analyze your data and implement and monitor. Without a market research, and it's not necessary that you come up with a big word, market research, tell some 25 people. No, you can always ask or put something called a monkey survey, which is very easy these days. Send it across so that more people actually give their point of view. Even after doing communication, for God's sake, do not show it to your wife and some three people who will say yes, yes, yes to everything you say, and then come up with that as your communication. For all you know, it will fall flat. The best is to actually research out communication so that third party, they get to see and they'll say good, bad, ugly, and then take it forward. Yep. Now there's something called a buyer personas drawing. Now it's like you take a canvas and you're trying to draw the picture of the typical target audience that you want to address. For example, your demographics, your psychographics, behavior, challenges, buying journey, communication preferences, etc. Now here the most important aspect are something called the pain points, or what really interests a person to buy a particular product. 95% of handbags that are sold in the world, women 95% handbags are fake. Their first copy, people have absolutely no problem. In fact, we've reached a point that everyone actually says that very openly. It's a first copy, absolutely no problem. But the fact is, I would like to own this brand, which is essentially your pain point, wherein holding a particular brand is seen as a matter of stardom, happiness. There's nothing wrong. There are people who will actually show the watch and say that, hey, this is first copy. I'm perfectly okay, because for me, it's the number of watches that I can have of various brands that is much, much more important than going back. Whether right, wrong, ethical, unethical, different matter. But that's how the mindset is. Nimna. Next one. So how do you craft a brand that resonates? Every brand, you need a logo, colors, typography, message, voice, experience. Logo. Now, a logo from a distance has to be seen, and if you look at the last 1.5 years, all logos are in a very slimming mode, because everyone has moved into the digital world. If you look at Audi, VW, I can go on, Google, everyone has shed their fat because they want to be on the digital space. Now, what kind of logo do you want to develop? Whether you want a calligraphy-driven logo or an Arabic-English combined logo, that's purely your lookout depending on the business that you want. Second is colors. In fact, there is a science, there's a study on colors called semiotics. Semiotics essentially says what are the colors that can be used for, let's say, a food brand or a bank or a financial institution or telecom. But as a matter of fact, there is always an aberration for a rule. There are banks that use the color purple. Now, purple banking, not too sure. The general accepted color for a corporate is usually blue. Now, that's because historically an IBM and a Microsoft and all have been blue. But that doesn't mean it needs to be blue. An advertising agency like FCB, which is Food Cone and Building, it's got the most beautiful logo, multicolored, really lovely logo. So you can have any that you want as long as there is a rationale behind it. And typography, brand message, the kind of typography. Now, essentially, typos can be divided to two. One is industrial fonts, the other one is organic fonts. Industrial fonts are really boring looking fonts because they really don't touch you anywhere. The organic fonts are the ones which they're a little more chunkier, they're more humane when you actually look at it. And brand voice and experience are two other aspects, because each time it really talks to you, it needs a kind of connect. Body Shop is a classic example of a brand which has got a lovely logo, because in toto it kind of covers it. Next. You're done? Which leads to social media. In social media, the whole process is you have a social strategy. From social strategy developed something that's called a social calendar onto how you would populate it with social posts. Most important thing is community management. How do you respond to customer queries and then you analyze? Next. These are obviously the various social platforms that are available. And in fact, I must tell you that whenever, next, this is a very incomplete list because social media is something that is growing on a daily basis. Like, for example, in the GCC, Instagram is very strong. But if you were to look at, let's say, the West, US, Reddit, they clearly rule it. Now, this is on to digital marketing, wherein you have Google AdWords, YouTube, social EDMs. All these are ways and means to reach the consumer from an SME perspective. It's not necessary that you pick all, just like it's not necessary to pick all social media. If you find that I need only Instagram, do only Instagram. A lot of clients have the habit of taking, or since social is free, let me use all of them. It's very silly. If you need only Instagram, use only Instagram. If you need only Twitter, use only Twitter. Just because free doesn't mean more the merrier. And there are even others who would say, why put two posts a week? I'll put 2 posts a day. It's not taking some pill. We may do it, but is the audience really interested in looking at the post? May not. In terms of, these are some of the statistics to share, clearly prove that over a period of time, internet penetration in Oman has really increased. The youngster population, we all know, has really gone up to the extent that digital social is the way forward if you want to take the brand stronger. Next. And there are 3 ways to do. One is social, using all the platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, etc. And they're not the same. For example, Twitter, it's a very dicey one. Everyone has an opinion on Twitter. So if you think you are not really required to have a presence on Twitter, please don't even get into. Instagram is much easier to deal. Snapchat, obviously, the incidence of women being on Snapchat, very high. Pinterest, not so much, because the opportunity for people to use bad language on Pinterest is less. By nature, we all like the negative and not the positive. Pinterest is too Puritan. That's why it hasn't really taken off to the extent that it should have. Organic. If you have a website, and it is very important for SMEs to have your own website, it can be using WordPress, but it's not too safe. The second option is Wix. PHP is another. Irrespective of whatever format that you would use to have, the point is, when you do a digital campaign, have a lead in to your website so that it will help grow the business. I've gone through all of this. The most important thing is actually content and the way you respond to the people, not the techno part alone. Techno is just the vehicle to carry forward. Now, SEO is important. It's no great technology. You can do it either using on-page and off-page. The simple logic is there are a million websites. Now, if you want to come up high up in the list, obviously you need to put that effort, which could be either using on-page or off-page, so that you go up the list. There are other ways also, which is Google Display and bulk SMS and the likes of it. Now, in addition to this, one could use traditional media or analog media, wherein you set the objective, you speak to the right audience or consumer, and there's an activation and architecture that is required, which kind of carries the information forward. The long and short is, communication cannot exist in silo alone. Everything has to be together, as though you're running a circus. You have video, social, digital, email, influencers, activation, PR, outdoor engagement, brand campaigns. Everything has to work in tandem together so that they are able to tell a narrative or story. If you do not have the budget for everything, which happens, you can be happy with 2 or 3. It's not necessary that you have to tick all. Pick 2 or 3 which are relevant and carry it forward. Now, there's Zainab and Eva to take the presentation from here. Go.
Hey guys, Ava, Zainab, taking over Najib. Thank you, Najib. So we're going to begin with brand awareness. Now, brand awareness is something that is and will always be relevant to small businesses and big businesses alike. Now, brand awareness is not just about how many people know your brand. It's about what they know about your brand. So that includes your communication, the messages you send, the way you communicate, the people who you're targeting. All of this falls under brand awareness. Now, brand awareness can be done on a big scale. It can be done on a small scale. So when I say big scale, I mean like, the big brands when they go for like billboards, outdoor billboards, celebrity endorsements, and it can be done on a small scale. So the example I'm going to show you next is of a brand, a big brand, but who has created brand awareness through something as small as the use of their logos, their brand colors. So HSBC, as we all know, is one of the banking leaders throughout the world. They have a global presence, which makes it even more important for them to stay locally relevant. So these are some of the examples I've picked out from their Instagram pages. Now, as we all know, HSBC has their iconic red and white, and they have their iconic logo as well. Now, all of these, for example, the first post that you see is of Halloween. Now, what flies in the West is not essentially going to be the same in the East as well. So we in Muscat, India, we don't celebrate Halloween. But this flies in the West. So, this is their main page. They have a post on Halloween where they have their logo. So if I had seen this particular post anywhere on any page on Instagram, so it can be a business page, a marketing page, I would know this is unmistakably HSBC because of the logo. Now, when you take the second one obviously is, it's Indian, it's Diwali. And one thing that is core to an Indian festival like Diwali is the Rangoli. Now, I will not be playing this video, but it's a little video, it's a reel on how the Rangoli forms. It's as simple as that, just a little drawing of the Rangoli and red and white. So this is 100% HSBC. The third one is because they were the banking sponsors. If you guys have the time, you definitely should check out their Instagram pages. It's one of the best when it comes to marketing. Third one is because they were one of the main banking sponsors for the Wimbledon. They had a little animated GIF. You guys should check it out. So what we saw was through, they harnessed the power of logo, their brand colors to create brand awareness. This one is through community support. Now, HSBC, they sponsor a bunch of events. It's mainly to do with sports and with kids, children. So one thing about children, when parents see stuff to do with children, it sort of strikes a chord for the parents. Now, for someone who doesn't know about HSBC, if they have no idea who HSBC is, and they're present at this event, they will see that HSBC is, sort of cares about events to do with kids. So parents automatically get the message that HSBC kids, they all go hand in hand. So this really works. Now, when we talk about Oman has numerous platforms, a bunch of places where SMEs can showcase their business. We have our Friday markets all around the city. We have them in, in Al Moj, we have them in malls. So the whole idea here is businesses need to keep their ears to ground and find out avenues where they can showcase their products, their services, depending on their target market or their budgets. So the next example is personally one of my favorite. It's about Spotify. Spotify is honestly one of my favorite brands when it comes to marketing, when it comes to messaging. Now, when I look at Spotify's Instagram or I look at their marketing strategies and I look at their communication ways, I feel like Spotify honestly is like my friend. The way Spotify says stuff in their communication messaging, it's like as if they're my friend. So the whole idea is businesses need to they need to communicate messages in a way that they are not businesses, but they're empathetic individuals. They need to say it as they're your friends. So this, for example, is one of Spotify's. If you cannot see it, I'm going to read it out. It says, "Dear 3,749 people who streamed the end of the world as we know it, the day of the Brexit vote." So this sort of relates, you relate to people, and it also shows that, these 3,700 people, they're part of something big. Obviously, their names are not there on the billboards, but they feel sort of, part of something big. And for the rest of us who are not part of this 3,000, we want to be part of it. So it's the way they communicate their messages. Now, when we talk about, obviously, every brand has competition. There's always new players in the market. And there's an exhaustive list of how we can get ahead of competition. So the examples we're going to be talking to you about in the slides to come are about that, about how we, gain competitive advantage. I'm going to give this over to Zainab.
Hi. So I will take you quickly through this slide. So this brand, Tom actually started his brand back when he saw kids in Argentina that they don't have shoes. So he created this brand, and honestly, it has some strong a background story and strong values connected to it. So whenever you buy shoes, so a commission goes part to people in need, so they get also shoes from it. Okay, next. Okay, so here is one great example about desert design. So this brand actually does a lot of partnerships with different collaborations with people, which is really interesting. So they are based in Jordan. Okay, so they do a lot of collaborations with the people who are their traditional weavers, for example. They do a lot of collaborations with their NGOs, which actually support the community in a way that you provide more work, and you have that essence in your product that is purely mine. They also have collaborations among the Middle East. So it's not only the brand, it's not speaking about the Jordanian design or the designs in the jewelry or the clothes or everything. So they have the design amongst all everything. So they are unique in a way. They created a unique brand for themselves. Okay, next.
Now, this brand, Zappos, they sell footwear apparel. Now, Zappos is, their motto is service, service, service. Now, one brilliant thing about Zappos is, okay, say for example, you buy something from Amazon, you want to return it, there's some sort of issue, you call customer service. And it's always going to be that, that monotone, oh, for some so-and-so, press 1, for so-and-so, press 2. And there's this whole routine that happens until they say, to speak to a customer service agent, press 20120, I don't know what. And Zappos, on the other hand, when you call them, this is customer service, when you call them, it's an actual customer service agent that picks up, and she's a real person, she's the one who says, this call is recorded for purposes of quality assurance, whatever. So you don't have to wait through the entire hassle of whatever, having to wait that long. This is part of, their customers. I honestly haven't seen any other brand that does this. They also have their 24/7 customer service lines open. And this is, an example. Customer experience, customer service is a really good way to get ahead of competition because everyone at some point stays stagnant.
So quickly going through this is Shipsy. It's a famous ships brand in Egypt. So they're actually having this campaign which speaks to people, which says 90 million smiles. Okay, so basically they created a face and they put half a face on the chips, and they just got all over space on it. So you can see it in kiosks, shops, malls, everywhere, different smiles. Okay. Next thing that has also social impact, which is Coca-Cola. They also did this campaign around 2014 in Egypt, which you can buy any can that has your name in it, your friend's grandma, your aunt, everything. This also something Pringles created, which is the guess the flavor. So amongst the product, it has a mystery around it. So I actually bought this, and I failed to know this product's name. Okay, so this is Swivel. Swivel is like transportation, like O-Taxi here. So they created like this creatives which speaks to you and says, oh, we can get you anywhere. Next is Kareem. Kareem is also creative in terms of billboards and mopies and everything. So this was like 7 years among you on the road. The next slide is actually where Najib said do not fall behind trends and everything, but this is I actually found like very funny. So Egyptians are so funny in terms of creative, so they create memes, okay? So these memes are around everything. Okay, skip. Skip. Okay. And finally, we would have liked to thank you for giving us the opportunity to present. And we just want to say, put yourself out there, be creative, and thank you.